And welcome while we read about two women who were very important in the suffrage movement and in the medical field. So Dorothea Dix, she created the first American asylums, and she very much improved a lot of conditions for elderly, mentally insane, or even just prisons. Susan B. Anthony, she is a social reformer and a suffragette, so women's right to vote. She's seeking that out. Dorothea Dix, she was born April 4th, 1802, and died July 17th, 1887. Dorothea Dix became a reformer concentrating on those suffering from mental illness along with those in jail. Dix spent time documenting the conditions of public and private institutions. She presented this information to different legislatures, which resulted in reforms throughout America and in Europe. The first state asylum for the insane, the Utica State Hospital in New York, was created due to her efforts. Her efforts resulted in the redesign of many hospitals. Dix is noted for her service during the Civil War, where she was superintendent of Army nurses for the Union Army. Susan B. Anthony was born February 15th, 1820, and she died March 13th, 1906. Susan B. Anthony originally began her social activism in the temperance movement. After meeting Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the focus of her work became more about women's suffrage. Susan B. Anthony, who was a Quaker, had at one time been a teacher. In fact, she was in class. She was teaching a class when Seneca Falls, the convention, happened, which is why she was not there at that first one. She was instrumental in publishing the newspaper The Revolution, which argued for the abolition of slavery and the right to vote for women and the right for women to own property and equal pay for equal work. Anthony was also active in the women's labor organization movement, fighting for workers' rights and shorter workdays. So like I said, she was teaching a class when Seneca Falls, the convention, occurred, and she could not attend. Now, this is the big thing about Susan B. Anthony. The 19th Amendment, which gives women the right to vote, full suffrage in 1920, was named for her because she wrote it in 1878. So she wrote the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, which is what it's called. It is the 19th Amendment, and it was passed 14 years after her death and giving women the right to vote. She also led the only nonviolent revolution in our country's history, which would be the 72-year struggle to win women the right to vote. So she also, after she stopped teaching and really became more of an activist, she gave about on average 75 to 100 speeches a year for 45 years. And she traveled throughout the United States by stagecoach, wagon, carriage, and train. When the women's rights movement, the suffragette, the early women's rights movement was really going on, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, while they were alive, was arguably the more famous and the leader of the movement. But because Anthony traveled around giving all those speeches, and because she's the one who actually wrote the 19th Amendment in 1920, giving women the right to vote, she is arguably the most famous suffragette, women's rights activist, feminist that there is. So I hope you're learning, and I hope you're having fun.